In 1942, Rogowski came into the world as the child of Robert Joseph Rogowski and Georgiana Bryant. His educational journey led him through high school in the vicinity of Minneapolis, followed by enrollment at St. Cloud State University. Dedicating a portion of his life to service, Rogowski joined the United States Army and was stationed in Germany. Professional wrestling career. Participating in the American Wrestling Association, AWA. From 1967 to 1968, Rogowski underwent training from Dick the Bruiser and Vern Gagne. His debut on August 19, 1967, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, showcased him as Rock Rogowski, securing a victory over Jose Quintero at the Minneapolis Auditorium. Embarking on a brief unbeaten streak, Rogowski's success was halted the following month when he and Mighty Igor Vodek faced Harley Race and Larry Hennig for the AWA World Tag Team Championship without success. In October 1967, he claimed the AWA Midwest Heavyweight Championship by defeating Bob Orton, only to have Orton reclaim the title the next month. December 1967 saw Rogowski challenging for the AWA World Tag Team Championship once again, teaming up with Bill Watts in 2 losses to champions Dr. Moto and Mitsu Arakawa. Continuing to be a regular presence in AWA, Rogowski concluded his stint in June 1968, moving on to Jim Crockett Promotions. American Wrestling Association, 1970 to 1971. In November 1970, Anderson re-entered the American Wrestling Association, AWA, and revived his Rock Rogowski persona. Making a successful comeback, he overcame Tex McKenzie to secure the AWA Midwest Heavyweight Championship for the second time, only to relinquish the title to Stan Pulaski the following month. During the same month, Anderson faced off against his mentor Vern Gagne for the AWA World Heavyweight Championship, resulting in a double countout. Moving into early 1971, Anderson achieved success in the AWA Midwest Tag Team Championship twice, partnering with The Claw and later with Ox Baker. However, by mid-1971, Anderson departed the AWA once again, this time to join Championship Wrestling from Florida. Joining Championship Wrestling from Florida in July 1971, Anderson immersed himself in the wrestling scene of the Sunshine State. Shortly after his arrival, he teamed up with Ronnie Garvin, and together they clinched the vacant NWA Florida Tag Team Championship later that month. However, their reign was short-lived as they surrendered the titles to the Australians, Larry Odia and Ron Miller, the following month. In a notable accomplishment in December 1971, Anderson defeated Jack Briscoe to become the NWA Florida Television Champion. Unfortunately, his title reign lasted only a week as he was defeated by Bob Roode. Anderson continued to be a regular presence in Championship Wrestling from Florida until the spring of 1972 when he made the decision to return to Jim Crockett Promotions. From 1972 to 1985, Anderson dedicated the majority of his wrestling career to Jim Crockett Promotions and Georgia Championship Wrestling. In the dynamic period spanning the mid-1970s to the early 1980s, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew etched their legacy in tag team wrestling across the Georgia and Mid-Atlantic territories, clinching the NWA Georgia Tag Team Championship and the Mid-Atlantic version of the NWA World Tag Team Championship an impressive 7 times each. 9. The Andersons engaged in heated rivalries with notable stars including Mr. Wrestling and Mr. Wrestling 2, Wahoo McDaniel, Jack Briscoe, Jerry Briscoe, Dusty Rhodes, Tommy Rich, Johnny Weaver, Dino Bravo, Paul Jones, Ric Flair, Greg Valentine, Ricky Steamboat, Rufus R. Jones, the Mongols, and Thunderbolt Patterson throughout the 1970s and early 1980s. In 1975, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew found themselves in a series of matches against Paul Jones and Wahoo McDaniel for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. A June 1975 encounter featured the Supreme Sacrifice angle, where Ole maneuvered McDaniel into Gene's head, resulting in both men being knocked out, allowing Ole to secure the pin. In a harrowing incident in May 1976, Anderson fell victim to a knife-wielding audience member in Greenville, South Carolina. The assailant inflicted wounds on his arm and chest, leading to the reattachment of tendons and a considerable number of stitches. Behind the scenes, Anderson assumed the role of primary booker for GCW and also undertook a booking stint for JCP in 1981-82. At one point, he even juggled simultaneous bookings for both companies, orchestrating supercards that were renowned for delivering some of the finest action in the business during that era. Eventually, he transitioned from JCP to exclusively book and wrestle for GCW. When Jack and Jerry Briscoe sold their majority interest in the GCW promotion to Vince McMahon, Anderson resisted the change and, in collaboration with longtime NWA-sanctioned promoters Fred Ward and Ralph Freed, embarked on the creation of a new venture named Championship Wrestling from Georgia. Jim Crockett Promotions / World Championship Wrestling, 1985 to 1995. In April 1985, a significant development occurred as Jim Crockett Promotions and Championship Wrestling from Georgia effectively joined forces. During this time, Ole Anderson was partnering with Thunderbolt Patterson in GCW, coinciding with the debut of Marty Lund in JCP under the name Arn Anderson. Given their strikingly similar facial appearances, the idea of pairing the two Andersons emerged as a natural fit. Subsequently, Anderson betrayed Thunderbolt and joined forces with Arn to form the formidable tag team known as the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. The billing for Arn Anderson varied, identifying him as Ole's brother, cousin, or nephew. The Four Horsemen, 1986 to 1987. In 1986, Anderson joined the inaugural incarnation of the Four Horsemen, a villainous stable consisting of Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and manager J. Dillon. Throughout his tenure with the Four Horsemen, Anderson engaged in intense rivalries with Magnum T, Dusty Rhodes, the Rock and Roll Express, and the Road Warriors. However, in early 1987, Anderson found himself ousted from the group in favor of Lex Luger. Anderson chose to retire in 1987, a decision influenced by the burgeoning amateur wrestling career of his son, Bryant. Subsequently, Bryant entered World Championship Wrestling, WCW, under the ring name Bryant Anderson. Anderson made a comeback in 1988 when he intervened to save Lex Luger from a beating by their former Horseman comrades. In 1989, Anderson re-entered the wrestling scene with WCW, marking his return to reform the Four Horsemen alongside Flair, Arn, and Sting. 16. Swiftly, they ousted Sting from the group, prompting Anderson to retire once more and assume the role of managing the Horsemen. During this period, the Horsemen expanded to include Barry Windham and Sid Vicious. Retirement, 1996 to 2024. Following his retirement, which began in 1996, Anderson distanced himself from the wrestling world but delved into authorship, penning a book titled, Inside Out: How Corporate America Destroyed Professional Wrestling. During this period, he hinted at unresolved tensions with his former partner and friend Ric Flair, particularly criticizing Flair for adhering to a consistent wrestling style over the years. In Flair's WWE biography, he recalled a contentious moment when Ole, then the head booker for WCW, questioned Flair's value to the company after losing a loser leaves town match with Mr. Perfect on national TV in 1993. This incident marked a personal strain, ultimately leading to the end of their friendship. 20. Anderson openly expressed his grievances with several figures in the wrestling industry, including Vince McMahon, Dusty Rhodes, Michael Hayes, Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff, Tully Blanchard, Jim Herd, Roddy Piper, and Bruiser Brody. In 2004, journalist Mike Mooneyham characterized Anderson as an intriguing, almost mythical, figure in the wrestling business. Professional wrestling style and persona. Anderson earned a reputation for his tough-as-nails approach and no-nonsense demeanor. As part of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, he engaged in a rugged, straightforward wrestling style devoid of flashiness or gimmicks. His repertoire featured a diving knee drop and a formidable hammerlock as his signature moves. Personal life and passing. Rogowski, known for his wrestling persona, had 7 children from a marriage that ultimately ended in divorce, with one of his sons, Bryant Rogowski, adopting the wrestling name Bryant Anderson. At the time of his demise, Rogowski had been in a relationship with Marcia Kane for a remarkable 22 years. In July 2007, reports from Gerwek.net indicated that Rogowski was battling multiple sclerosis, experiencing a decline in mobility and memory loss. Citation needed. On February 27, 2011, it was disclosed that Rogowski had sustained broken ribs from a fall earlier that day, in addition to a broken arm. Rogowski passed away on February 26, 2024, at the age of 81.